channel, I've had a new series, not so much in the video form, but in the poll area, and you people love my polls. And in the community section, a new poll I've been doing is rate this statement, where I'll type a statement that I've seen people say on the internet, and I'll allow you, the audience, to determine, is this statement true, false, ridiculous, or somewhat close to being accurate. And in that series of polls, and if you like to see my polls, just click on my channel, click on community, and just go through the community section, and you can vote on different polls. There's new polls every day. How many times am I going to say the word polls in the first 47 seconds? But one of the most recent polls is I said, rate this statement. And the statement was, in his prime, Penny Hardaway was just as good as Kobe Bryant. Now, on this internet, you have a lot of delusional, moronic, imbecilic people. And a lot of those people, they have this weird disdain, this weird hatred, this weird dislike towards Shaq for whatever reason. Now, I'm not saying there are reasons not to dislike him, but because you dislike somebody, that does not mean you chop them down and you discount their career. Shaq is one of the greatest players ever. I don't care what no one says. Shaq is top 10 all time. Shaquille O'Neal is probably the third, maybe second, third, maybe fourth, at the worst fourth, most dominant players in the history of basketball. Jordan, Wilt, maybe Russell, Kareem, and Shaq. Shaq was a dominating force his whole career. I've seen a lot of stupid narratives about Shaq, and be quiet. One of the greats. Now, this question or this statement that I put for you to vote on, which once again was, in his prime, Penny Hardaway was just as good as Kobe Bryant. True, ridiculous, or is that statement debatable? And that statement, and me, where I got that from was, I'm not going to say this person's channel's name because they don't deserve a shout out, but there are a lot of butthurt 90s Orlando Magic fans. A lot of them. Who knew so many? And the Orlando Magic, expansion team, they get Shaq, they get Dennis Scott, they get Scott Skiles or Scott Skittles, whatever his name is, and Horace Grant. They get Penny Hardaway and the whole Chris Webber ordeal. And Penny and Shaq were a hell of a combination in the 90s. And when Jordan retired, it was seen as Penny and Shaq is the next great duo. They're the team of the 90s into the 2000s. And obviously, it did not play out in that fashion. They did get to the NBA Finals, but Olajuwon was just so far ahead of Shaq and so far ahead of everyone else. The Rockets were not going to lose that series. But Penny Hardaway in the 90s was a monster. He was the definition of nice. When somebody says someone is nice at basketball, Penny Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, Tracy McGrady, nice. Skills, elegant. It's almost like a physical art to watch them play the game. Penny Hardaway had everything: size, speed, quickness, great ball handling. I think his strength gets underrated when he was fully healthy. I thought he was a very strong guard. He had a solid jump shot. When in the 90s, his three-point game wasn't very strong. It wasn't very strong like a Mitch Richmond or Chris Mullin, but he could hit the three-point shot when needed. He had a good post game. He had good footwork, good foot planning. He checked every box across the board. And I remember when Kobe Bryant got picked by the Lakers, or he got picked by the Hornets and then traded to the Lakers rather. When Kobe Bryant was very young, a lot of people would say, "Oh, well, he's just, another version of Penny, or he'll be Penny, or he'll be just as good as Penny." And Kobe Bryant used to hate that comparison. And in his mind, no, I'm not going to be the next Penny Hardaway. I'm going to be far better than him. And I think most people would agree he did obviously surpass Penny Hardaway. But the question is not, did he surpass Penny Hardaway? The question is, in their prime, Penny Hardaway's prime, let's say his prime was 95, 96, before the injuries. The question is not if Penny Hart met his potential in their prime. So let's say Penny's prime was 95, 96, and let's say Kobe's prime is like 06, 07. Who was better? Or not even who was better. It's not who was better. Kobe Bryant was better. Kobe Bryant was better. But was Penny Hardaway just as good? I'll say no. Was he close to being just as good? I'll say no. But I'll say no because you do have to factor in his injury. Because in 95, 96, Penny was still very young. Penny Hardaway, if he never got hurt, his prime might have hit around 2000, 2001. By that point, if he never got hurt, he might have averaged 27, 28 points a game. He might have been a top 5 in the MVP. So this is kind of a difficult poll to answer because we never got to see Penny Hardaway's full potential to reach his full prime. But if you have to go by his career and the way it played out, you have to say his prime was 95, 96. And I mention this because a lot of people in the comments are like, well, we never saw Penny's potential, but if we did, yeah, he would be just as good. Well, you can't really say that. That's not what the question is. Based off what you saw, it's like Grant Hill. Grant Hill's potential was greater than what he became, but injuries stifled him. So you have to say Grant Hill's prime was probably like Penny, 95, 96, 97. The Detroit years were Grant Hill's prime because injuries cut him short. Grant Hill's prime probably would have hit around 02, 03. But based on what happened with the person's career, Penny Hardaway was nowhere near as good as Kobe Bryant in his prime. He potentially could have been, but injuries. And Kobe Bryant was fortunate that he didn't suffer major injuries. Because Kobe Bryant, when you get to 2001, 2002, he's a tremendous player. But when you get to 06, 07, 08, 09, he was even better, which is frightening. He was a killer on the court. You know, he was something that LeBron James could never be. With that said, what are your thoughts on this? In the poll, where the question is in his prime, or not the question, the statement, in his prime, Penny Hardaway was just as good as Kobe Bryant. The results, as of this recording, is 290 votes. And true, people agreeing with this is 21%. People saying it's debatable is 34%. And the winner of this poll is it's ridiculous to say this, which is 45%. Now, if I was voting, which I never vote in my own polls, if I was voting, I would say it's ridiculous, but it's ridiculous for the reasons I said. Penny Hardaway's career was stifled, so you kind of have to go by, his last really good years, which is like, once again, 95, 96. When you get to 98, when you get to 2000, when you get into the 2000s, Penny, he goes to Phoenix, then he's like in Miami, he was in New York. It was really sad the way his career ended. It really was. Same thing with Grant Hill. Now, personally, I can't stand Grant Hill, but that's another video another day. But it's just, why is it always those type players that got to get hurt? Why can't it be like Slava Medvedenko? Why couldn't he break his leg? No, it got to be Penny Hardaway. Damn. Why couldn't Josh Powell be hurt? No, Josh Powell stole multiple rings. Damn. Anyway, leave your thoughts in the comments. Penny Hardaway is a legend. Obviously, Kobe Bryant, the late, great legend. I'm not the biggest fan of Kobe Bryant. I'm not a fan of nobody. But I recognize his greatness and I recognize his talent. And rest his soul. But he did touch a white woman. So that just makes him the basketball version of OJ. Anyway, XDN wins. Did I say like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel? If you enjoy this content, if you want more basketball content, if you want more content on a certain person, certain topic, if you want more videos on Shaq, Kobe, whoever, you can donate to the Cash App and just write the video you want in the description. The Cash App is $XDN online. Most of my videos on all my channels are from donations from listeners and viewers like you. Without your suggestions, followed by a donation, what would this channel be? With that said, that is it. I'm up out of here.